Hi, I'm Brooke, and I'm a sex traffic survivor.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm the co-founder and president of an anti-human trafficking ministry called Changing Destinies. And I am also the mother of a sex trafficking survivor because Brooke is my daughter.
When I was trafficked, I was the age of 18. Most people think because you're at an age of accountability that you have chosen to be a prostitute, and that's just not true. When I was a little girl, I remember wanting to be a dentist. Then as I entered middle and high school years, I wanted to be a model or actress because I had gone through an awkward stage during puberty where boys I liked found me unattractive. I had low self-esteem and felt by becoming a model or actress that I'd be worthy of their attention. At the age of 14, I met a woman who had asked me to babysit for her. We were unaware that she was a dancer, but when we found out, my mom had chose to let me continue to babysit for her because she was a Christian, and we were taught not to judge people by the way they lived, and she thought that it would be a good opportunity to maybe love her to Jesus. And I think if my mom had known what she had known now, then she would have kept me very far from her. I babysat for her for 3 to 4 years. During that time, she groomed me for the sex industry. I was an impressionable teenager with low self-esteem, and the woman featured in magazines as well as pageants. She paid me very well, and her sugar daddies got me out of school so that we could go to places like Disney Quest for the day. I looked up to her, and I wanted to be just like her. I was naive and couldn't see the bigger picture. I only seen what she wanted me to see, which was a life of glamour and luxury, and I really wanted that.
We were a military family living in base housing at the time, and when you're in the military, you have a tendency to view other military families as an extension of your own family. And never in a million years would I have ever dreamt that someone I had known and had always been very good to would one day turn around and exploit and hurt my child for their own financial gain. That was really a hard pill for me to swallow.
When I became 18, my parents moved away and I stayed behind. The woman's husband showed up at my job and told me I needed to get up with his wife as we had lost contact. He made it sound like I'd have the opportunity to become a model and make a lot more than I was at the job I was at. He actually made it sound like I'd almost be stupid if I didn't get in touch. So I did immediately. I met with her, and I was still under the impression there was a modeling opportunity. But they did say I'd go on dates in which men would pay me. But they told me I'd never have to do anything I didn't want to do. So I went with would-be my traffickers on a half-truth and quickly found out my true purpose there.
I am all too familiar with the exploitation process that almost destroyed my child's life. You see, for many years I taught at a military school called SERE, S-E-R-E, which stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. This is a school where we train military personnel such as pilots and special operating forces on how to survive and resist exploitation and escape in the event they become a POW, a detainee, or even a hostage. I learned how exploitation works both by experiencing it myself as a student and then week after week demonstrating it as an instructor on other students. We're not talking about naive children with absolutely no life experience to draw on, because these were grown men and women that I saw. These were the best of the best. These are the smartest and the most confident in our military. Yet every class I would watch them fall for the trickery and be coerced into doing things that I knew they didn't want to do. I think that most people have heard about the Stockholm Syndrome, what we would call trauma bonding, and this is where a person in fear for their life begins to identify with their captor, and it's a survival strategy. But there's also something called barbed wire psychosis, and this is where an exploiter convinces their captive that there's nowhere they can run or hide that's outside of the captor's reach, that it's a better option to just stay there and cooperate. There's also something that a captor will use to manage their victim, which is called coercive manipulation. And this is actually a program designed to condition and manipulate someone to do what you want them to do. And an exploiter will use things like sexual assault, torture, humiliating or degrading their victim, or threats to them and their family as some of the many ways exploiters will do that. So when someone is soliciting sex from another person, they would call a prostitute, and actually believe in their heart they're simply entering into some sort of mutual business agreement or transaction. 9 times out of 10, it's a frightened, abused, and confused victim where every shred of their humanity and dignity has been ripped away from them at some point in their life.
When the first day came to a close and all the Johns had come and went, I cried a lot. You try to shower away the things that took place, but no amount of soap and water can wash away the feeling of shame and humiliation. It was really hard for me to believe that that would be my new life. I watched other girls with envy, as it seemed it was easy for them, but they had to be very drugged up to do it. Pimps knew if they got these girls hooked on drugs that they would depend on the pimps, and it was just another form of bondage. I left. I had an opportunity to seize the moment to get far away, and I did. I tried very hard to forget, and while I suppressed the memories, my life spiraled out of control. I could not live a normal life or function as a normal human being. I thought of suicide often, but was blessed with my girls who kept me hopeful. I became a dancer for 11 years because I had lost the ability to dream beyond using my body for an income. I drank to feel good, and I even dated a man who was just like a pimp and the worst kind. I could not escape the things that had happened to me. I lived a nightmare of cycles, and I had about lost my fight.
So at this point, I'm going to switch from instructor and abolitionist to a mom right now, as I'm sure that many of the people watching this video are parents or maybe even grandparents. I'll never forget the day that Brooke called my husband asking him to come and get her. I'll admit we were pleasantly surprised when she called because she had always been this independent, free-spirited child who always wanted to explore and experience life on her own. And I remember feeling good about her coming home because she was my first to leave the nest and I wasn't entirely comfortable about it. So I actually went to great lengths to try to make a big deal out of her coming home by getting a cake and a card and some flowers and things like that. But the minute she walked in, as her mother, I can tell you that I knew something had happened to her. I had no idea what it could be because at that point in time I had absolutely no point of reference for human trafficking. I mean, that wouldn't have even crossed the radar for me. But what I saw is this is a girl who had always been very meticulous about her appearance, and I could see that she had let herself go. I mean, she looked very thin, she was frail, she looked broken, she looked depressed. She wouldn't smile, her eyes were empty. She wouldn't even look at the card, she didn't cut the cake we had bought for her. She sat there for a few minutes and then excused herself. And I looked over at my husband and he told me, you know, she was like that the entire trip back home. And he said he had told her to not give up on herself. So one day, one of our other daughters approached me and she swore me to secrecy, saying that Brooke told her that she had been raped. So now I felt at least I had some sort of explanation for what I was seeing, but what I didn't realize at that time is that my child had been raped over and over again so that somebody else could get paid. Because I had sworn to my daughter that I wouldn't tell Brooke that I knew, The only thing I knew to do was just try and love her and help her the best I could to get work, to get back into church, and she did start going back to church again. And I was actually encouraged because I started to see her smile and take care of herself again like she used to. But then one day I learned she was a dancer at a local strip club. Now, I can't even express to you the shock that I felt over that. It was something that I couldn't even wrap my head around at that point in my life. At first I was pretty angry about it and quite embarrassed, but eventually, because she did it for 11 years, I became numb to it and just accepted it, that this was just the way that she was. Then in August of 2012, I had a very profound, life-changing experience where I began to hear God calling me into human trafficking ministry. I didn't understand why at the time because I didn't have a burden for it. I barely even knew it existed at this point in my life. And I didn't think I knew anyone whose life had been affected by human trafficking, which, hindsight, obviously I did. But because it was undeniable, I chose to walk in obedience to a calling that I knew for a fact was on my life. It was actually 1 year after I co-founded Changing Destinies that Brooke sat me down to tell me that she had been trafficked 12 years prior. She had been carrying around the guilt and shame all of those years, and it was destroying her life. And you know what? Even though I didn't know she had been trafficked, I saw the destruction that it caused over those 12 years. And this event, her telling me, was just the beginning of an amazing transformation of her life that is nothing short of miraculous.
That was until almost 3 years ago. I was at a crossroads. I could choose death or I could choose life. I chose life and I got saved at a local church. The past 3 years has been hell while I've walked through the memories and healed from the pain. But God has kept me strong and restored my life. None of those painful moments have gone to waste. They have been used to bless me in ways I could have never imagined. I have forgiven the very people I felt stole my identity and broke me. I bless them and I love them. Every John or pimp is a child of God. Nothing they do will ever make God love them less. Nothing I did will ever make God love me less. When you realize how undeserved that love and forgiveness is, it makes it easier to forgive even the most unforgivable. You don't have to try to validate yourself by buying or selling someone. Life can feel lonely sometimes, but you don't have to be alone. God is waiting with arms wide open. Whether you're the John, the pimp, or the victim, please understand there is redemption and forgiveness always available to you.
You plead my cause, you right my wrongs, you break my chains, you overcome, you gave your life.
The biggest thing I've taken away from this experience is the revelation of God's pure love. I see that He found a way to bring to my attention something that had happened to my child 12 years prior. And He did it so that she could begin to heal and walk out the destiny that He had in mind for her all along. I've been watching her journey over the past 2 years in amazement, and I will say that she is one of the strongest women that I know, and I am very blessed and so proud to be her mom. As for how I feel about traffickers and Johns or the people who buy sex, with God's help, I've actually managed to work through a lot of those anger issues and the feelings of betrayal that I felt after I found out what had happened to Brooke. I have actually forgiven the woman who I allowed Brooke to babysit for, as well as the other traffickers and the Johns who hurt her. Only God. The reason I am able to extend mercy and grace to them is because God extended it to me through the sacrifice of His only Son, Jesus, on the cross. There is redemption in our story. So the purpose of us making this video today was to dismantle all the lies and bring the truth to light. Do not be deceived. You will stand before God one day and give an account of your life to Him. Jesus said, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, that is what he will also reap. So please don't continue to sow into an industry that destroys people's lives. We're asking you to sow into organizations, ministries, and nonprofits that are actually trying to help those who are caught up in human trafficking. There are many local, regional, national, and international organizations and nonprofits out there to choose from. Feel free to research and give as you feel led, and we will provide for you a list of different organizations to help you along that path. My prayer is that everyone watching this video will experience salvation through true repentance and faith in Jesus Christ, who is our Lord. May you choose life, love, compassion, and decency, and service to the Lord for yourself and the brave young men and women who are survivors of human trafficking. God bless you.
You